Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event.
Imagine walking through a field you've crossed 1,000 times. You know the path, you know the landmarks, and you feel safe. But suddenly, the map changes overnight. The safe zones are now danger zones, and the ground beneath you, the very regulations you rely on, starts shifting. That is exactly what federal contractors are feeling right now in late 2025. It's not just a regulatory update. It feels like a paradigm shift.
That is a perfect analogy. We aren't just seeing new rules, we are seeing a weaponization of the old ones. The government isn't reinventing the wheel here, they are reimagining how to use it to run people over.
That sounds ominous. But looking at the recent alerts, specifically regarding the Department of Transportation and the Treasury, ominous might be the right word. We are talking about a massive surge in investigations. What triggered this sudden aggressive stance?
It's a combination of things. You have a new administration that is laser-focused on cutting waste and dismantling what they see as bureaucratic overreach. On the 6th of November 2025, the Department of the Treasury dropped a bombshell, a comprehensive audit of all preference-based contracts. We are talking about roughly $9 billion in contract value being put under the microscope.
$9 billion? That is not a small fishing expedition. That is trawling the ocean floor.
Exactly. And their primary target is the pass-through scheme.
Right. Let's break that down for the listeners who might not be in the weeds of procurement law. What does a pass-through look like in this context?
So, imagine a massive construction company or a defense giant. They want a specific government contract, but it's set aside for a small business, maybe under the SBA's 8A program for disadvantaged businesses. The big giant can't bid on it, so they find a small company that qualifies, have that small company win the bid, but then the big company does 99% of the work as a subcontractor. The small business just takes a fee for lending their name.
It's a costume party. The big corporation is wearing a small business mask.
Precisely, and the Treasury is done with the masquerade. They are looking for arrangements where the prime contractor, the small business, is contributing minimal effort. The regulations are actually very specific about what percentage of work a prime contractor must self-perform. If you are just a hollow shell passing money to a giant partner, you are in the crosshairs. And this follows a suspension case where a contractor allegedly defrauded the government of over $250 million. That was the wake-up call.
And it's not just the Treasury, right? The SBA is launching its own massive audit?
Yes, and this is where it gets terrifying for compliance officers. The SBA audit, which was announced back in June 2025, isn't just looking at today's contracts. They are looking back 15 years. They are reviewing high-dollar contracts dating back to 2010.
15 years? I mean, think about the logistics of that. Who has perfect email records, timesheets, and certification documents from 2010 readily available?
Very few people, and that's the danger. This is a gargantuan effort, to quote the analysis. It seems almost impossible to do accurately, but that doesn't mean they won't try. They are looking to recover misused funds and, more importantly, to suspend or debar contractors. If you get debarred, you aren't just losing a contract, you're losing your right to do business with the government entirely. It's a corporate death sentence.
It feels like the government is using a finer net than ever before. But let's pivot to the how. They aren't just sending auditors with clipboards. They are using legal mechanisms that have some serious teeth.
The False Claims Act, the FCA. This is the government's favorite hammer, and suddenly everything looks like a nail. Traditionally, the FCA was used for things like billing for work you didn't do or selling the Army defective bulletproof vests. Clear-cut fraud. But now, they are using the FCA to enforce compliance in areas we used to think of as administrative.
Like cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity is a huge one. The DOJ has been ramping this up for years, but it's hitting a fever pitch. Look at the Georgia Tech case from September 2025. They agreed to pay nearly $900,000 to settle an FCA violation.
And what did they actually do wrong? Did they get hacked?
That's the catch. It wasn't about a hack, it was about the certification. They failed to comply with specific Department of Defense cybersecurity standards, but they submitted assessments saying they were compliant. That is the false claim. You told the government your digital locks were secure, and they weren't. That is now treated as fraud.
So, incompetence or laziness in your IT department is now a legal liability that can cost you millions.
Or bankrupt you. And it's spreading to even murkier waters. E-Verify.
This one scares me the most because it involves the human element. E-Verify is the system to check if employees are eligible to work in the US, right?
Correct. Most federal contractors know they have to use it for their own employees, but the new audits are targeting subcontractors. There was a recent settlement in New Jersey, $4 million. The allegation was that a company used unauthorized workers on a Navy contract. But here is the kicker. The issue wasn't necessarily the prime contractor's direct employees, it was the workforce down the chain.
Wait, so if I'm the prime contractor, and I hire a sub to do the plumbing or the coding, and they hire unauthorized workers, I'm on the hook?
You can be. The DOJ is asking, is it enough to blindly rely on your subcontractor's promise? If you just checked a box where the sub said, yeah, we use E-Verify, that might not be enough anymore. You need a system to ensure they are actually doing it.
That changes the entire relationship between primes and subs. You almost have to audit your partners before the government audits you.
You absolutely do. If you don't have a process to vet your subcontractor's compliance, you are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Blind reliance is no longer a defense, it's an admission of negligence.
I want to touch on the third rail of this discussion. We've talked about money. We've talked about cyber. We've talked about hiring. Now let's talk about culture. The input mentioned DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. For years, the government told contractors, you must have these programs. Now, the wind seems to be blowing in the exact opposite direction.
This is the most volatile area right now. It's a complete 180-degree turn. Under the previous administration, DEI was a mandate. Under the Trump administration in 2025, certain DEI initiatives are being viewed as discriminatory. The DOJ launched a civil rights fraud initiative in May.
Civil rights fraud. That is a heavy term.
It is. They are targeting what they call divisive DEI policies. The theory is that if you are receiving federal funds and you are implementing DEI policies that the administration deems to be illegal discrimination, for example, hiring quotas, based on race, you are committing fraud against the government. You are certifying compliance with civil rights laws while, in their view, violating them.
That is a fascinating legal twist. Using the False Claims Act to police corporate ideology.
It is unprecedented. You have Executive Order 14151, which directs agencies to pursue these claims. So contractors are in this impossible bind. They built these massive DEI infrastructures to comply with the old rules, and now those same structures might be the evidence used against them in a fraud investigation.
It's whiplash. Pure regulatory whiplash. So, if I'm a CEO or a compliance officer listening to this, I'm probably sweating. I can't change the past 15 years of emails, and I can't fire all my subcontractors overnight. What do I actually do?
Panic is not a strategy, but aggressive proactivity is. The recommendation is simple. Do the government's job before they do it for you.
Meaning audit yourself?
Ruthlessly. You need to conduct an internal review of your compliance programs right now. Look at your E-Verify process. Don't just check the policy manual, go look at the actual files. Look at your cybersecurity assessments. Are they aspirational or are they accurate? If you said you have a firewall, you better have that firewall.
And on the DEI front?
Tread carefully. The landscape isn't fully settled because there are court cases pending, but the intent of the administration is clear. You need to review your internal policies to ensure they don't violate the new interpretation of civil rights laws. You don't want to be the test case for the DOJ's new initiative.
It sounds like the era of check the box, compliance is dead.
It is. Compliance is now a core survival function. And don't forget your employees. They are your first line of defense. When auditors show up, who do they talk to? They talk to the staff. If your staff doesn't know the rules, or if they say the wrong thing, the investigation deepens. You need refresher training, and you need it yesterday.
It's interesting. Usually we think of audits as boring financial reviews. But what you're describing feels more like a forensic investigation into the soul of the company. Your hiring, your culture, your digital security, your partners.
That's the reality of federal contracting in 2025. The potential for audits can arise unexpectedly. It's not just about defective pricing anymore. It's about reputational damage, suspension, and criminal penalties.
And I suppose there are non-obvious landmines too? Things people forget about?
Oh, absolutely. Think about the Service Contract Act, mandatory disclosures, SAM representations. Every time you click Submit on a government portal, you are making a legal certification. If any part of that is inaccurate even by accident, it can lead to FCA liability.
So, the takeaway here is, be paranoid?
I'd say be constructively paranoid. The government is signaling its priorities very clearly. They are telling you exactly what they are going to look for. If you ignore those signals, you're walking into the minefield blindfolded.
It really reinforces the idea that federal contracting is a privilege, not a right, and that privilege comes with a microscope attached.
A microscope that is currently zooming in on $9 billion worth of contracts and 15 years of history.
Well, on that cheerful note, we have plenty to think about. It seems the only constant in this industry is change, and the speed of that change is accelerating.
Indeed, the government doesn't need to invent new ways to catch you. They just need to look at the old rules with new eyes. And that is exactly what they're doing.
A sobering reality check. For all our listeners, now is the time to review, retrain, and re-verify. Don't wait for the letter in the mail. Thank you for breaking this down with us today.
My pleasure. Stay safe out there.
We'll be back next week with more insights. Until then, keep your ducks in a row.
A special thank you to MarketUS.com for furnishing us this information. You can reach them at MarketUS.com or call them at 954-636-3232. Before we go, this deep dive was created by the MarketUS.com team. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. It's right below the subscribe link.